Alright, walk-in freezer. I had a video, this was a gas and go last week. I'm back today. It says the temperature is 10 degrees in here, and it definitely, it's not even, it's like 18. Yeah, it's definitely not what it should be. So the thermostat set for 10 below. Let's bump it. Oh, dude, it was off. He thought it was 10 below. Okay. And really, it's 18. So we're 28 degrees off. That's a problem. Wow. So if I set it for 20 below, in theory, it's going to pull down to 8. But there's a leak somewhere. I'm going to start with the roof. I hope it's in the roof. As a side note, all the building lights are on. That one ain't working. A week ago tomorrow, I filled this. It was about 2.5 pounds short. So definitely a leak. I'm gonna power it down. I brought up my, oh, I didn't bring it up. Okay, it's downstairs. I brought to the back porch my leak detector. I'm gonna kill the power, check the high side, and then I'll open it up to check the low side. Hopefully it's up here. All right, ignore the high-pitched beeping. I've got my Infocon TechMate. It's really low grade, but it's good enough for what I do with it. I'm not big balling like the rest of y'all running $500 leak detectors, but it gets it done. You just got to open it up and let it fresh air, and it'll clear. But looking at this unit, I just don't see anything jumping out up here near any of the valves. I don't see oil. Hoping maybe it's in the low pressure control. Those can be problematic, but I don't see it. So once the leak detector zeroes out, we'll go ahead and check all the high side now that's under pressure. Then I'll jump out the solenoid downstairs, see if it's in the evaporator. It's a freezer, so it is likely in the evaporator. This thing is only 2 years old. Yeah, well, that's frustrating, but all right, let's start the search. Hey, engineers, what am I supposed to do with this? What am I supposed to do with this? Can't move the box, it's bolted on through the inside. Bunch of monkeys from the factory. They couldn't have moved it down 2 inches. My leak detector, I feel like, is being it's funny as I talk about it's a low-end leak detector, but it gets the job done. It was giving me a lot of hits around here, and it was giving me some hits around here, and I don't really trust it. So I was just gonna start big bluing where it was going off and see if I can see the bubbles, but I wanted to get inside to this diaphragm, and it's so aggravating. All right, I've soaked everything up. I've got it on low. I was getting, on high sensitivity, I was getting some hits in here. So I don't love, let's set this back to high. But I mean, I've soaked it all up. Kind of filled that inner diaphragm that if it were leaking, I think it would be bubbling up. I consistently get hits in here. But I've soaked all this up and I don't see anything. I'm gonna remove that cap. I wanna see if it's drifting back from I mean? I feel like it's going off everywhere. And I don't buy it. Especially given places that I see it's going off. I'm soaping up and I get nothing. So this is a frustrating one. I don't think there's anything here. I think my detector, it's time for a new sensor. You could change those sensors in there. It's probably time. So, I said I'm going the soap bubble route, as if I just have to check everything, and I am, and I got nothing. I wondered, since it was going off here, if this wasn't right there, because that seems like it's sitting on the, it's got a bracket to keep it off of the base, but I don't feel like it is. I feel like it's down on the bottom, but I really buried it with soap to see if it was rubbed out. I got no bubbles. I even turned the unit on, because again, the low pressure side isn't, like right now, there's no pressure in there. That's why it's off. I put the cover against the fan blade, fired it up so I could get pressure building, and still I wasn't really getting anything. Sadly, I'm starting to think it's not up here and it's in the evaporator on the coil. So let me get the cover on this. Oh yeah, what am I supposed to do, engineers, by the way? This is all you can do. We're going to relocate that. I may replace it anyway, but let me get downstairs and see. Leaks detector for the wind underneath this cap. Look at it. Terrible, man. Yeah, I said the leak detector kept going off around here. I would bubble it up, I wasn't getting any. So, thermostat downstairs. I'm gonna change this pressure control anyway, because it was giving me hits. And now this. So let me figure out if I can get this to seal. And if not, I'm gonna be repiping to get rid of that shutoff. Alright, so when we started, that little pin was down here at about 6 o'clock. I was able to tighten it up to about 12 o'clock. Now, it was going off like crazy under here. To the back side here. If she's still leaking, get real slow. Alright, so I'm gonna gas this thing up, turn her back on, gas it up, and then we'll monitor site class. We know in a week what it did. That definitely was a substantial leak getting around that cap. It has a gasket in it, so now that I've tightened it up, hopefully that does the trick. Here's what I mean by filling the sight glass. Storing it in the fans aren't running inside, you're going to have flashing. If the coil's frozen, you're going to have flashing. You can't fill by the sight glass until you know your evaporator's clear. And it was. And I did go downstairs with the leak detector, open up the solenoid, and I tested coil to coil, all the ends. I got not even any hits at all. That's when I thought, okay, I'm going to trust my reader, or trust my leak detector, since it didn't give me any readings at all inside. And it did up here near that valve, so that's when I came up and unloaded the valve. Whoa, look at that. So that TXV's adjusting. It just like dumped. The sight glass just dropped. The TXV was closed, which gave us smaller restriction downstairs, and then all of a sudden that TXV adjusted open and took a big gulp of refrigerant, and you saw it clear out here. So you got to realize, in a situation like this, when the sight glass was flashing and I cleared it last week just to clear the sight glass, and that was it, that meant I put the minimum amount of refrigerant in the receiver that I needed to make the sight glass clear. But it didn't give me any extra. So when we started and this thing was fully charged, that receiver was 2/3 full. And as we bled down, it didn't affect anything until it got to 1/3, and then it was like, well, now I don't have enough to keep a solid sight glass. So even when you get the sight glass clear, you may only be to that point. So that's where you get the FLIR, and you take a look at where that is. I'm going to use the head pressure instead, just make sure we're not overcharged. And we're going to call this one good to go for now. We'll check in with it in a week, see how the sight glass looks. It makes me wonder if I really got it, right? So my leak detector isn't going off anymore on it. But here's what I'm doing. I am just, and you gotta go slow or it creates bubbles. But look, I'm just flooding that whole connection. So much that I would definitely have bubbles pushing through if it was still leaking. That is clear. That is clear. No more leak on that thing. I'm gonna change the temperature control. I'm gonna change the low pressure control, because I got a little hit on that, so. But not today. Not today, it's Saturday. Unit I think is fine. All right, thanks for coming. Well, at least now we're down to 8. 720, let's see. Nope. Yeah, it's about right. At -20, it's gonna pull down to 8.